Welcome to Butterflies and Bows. My name is Michele Jutrisa and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stamping Up here in Australia. What I'd like to show you today is a card that I made last week for ink inspirations. This card we had to use 3 colours, and those colours were Cherry Cobbler, Dapper Denim and Mint Macaron. A lot of people have been really interested in the way that I did the background on this card, so what I thought I'd do today is just show you a video on how I achieved this background. Now, it's a background I had never actually tried doing myself, and since doing this card, a lot of people have said to me that this is an older style of making these backgrounds that apparently hasn't been done for a little while. Now, when doing this, I had a bit of a play around, and I'd just like to show you the first few things that I ended up doing and the reasons why I do it the way I'm doing it. So let me just move my card here out of the road. The first time when I tried doing this, I made a bit of a puddle on my card, and just with using a straw blew the puddle around, but as you can see I ended up with this great big huge puddle of ink that really wasn't getting what I wanted to achieve. So the next thing I tried was I made a smaller puddle, and then using the straw started blowing the ink around. It was better, but I didn't have the fineness I wanted. As you can see, the ink that's come out from there is quite thick. I think it still looked good, but it just wasn't quite what I was trying to achieve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a piece of shimmery white cardstock. And the way I've achieved this, the background on this card, whoops, sorry, everything's falling down a bit, on this card, is by using a straw and blowing the ink. But what I did was I actually, I used a water Aqua pen, and I loaded up the Aqua pen with my ink, and then blew the ink straight from the tip of the Aqua pen. So the way I did that, and I started with my Dapper Denim, so I'm just going to squeeze my ink pad just to put some ink into the lid, just as I've done there. And I'm using this as my well. Now, I don't have any re-inkers, so this is the reason why I'm doing this. I'm adding a few drops of water to squeeze the Aqua pen until the water comes down through. Sorry, my nib is a little bit dry. Till I'm getting some ink, and I'm going to make quite a sloppy mixture of watered down ink there. So I'm just going to pop that to one side. Now, where I want the colour on my card's centering is not in the middle of my card, but just here, about, you know, sort of in the bottom 1/3. So I've got my straw, and with my ink I'm going to place my Aqua nib. I'll just move this more into camera view for you. Just where I want my centre of my colour to be. And just using my straw, I'm going to blow that colour. Let's load up a bit more. And just blowing it and keeping those streaks going around. Now all I did was just kept, whoops, not dropping my straw, but turning my paper around. And the closer I put my Aqua pen to the paper, just blow these out before they dry, the heavier the ink seems to run. A bit more on that one. Now, of course, every single one of these you do is going to come out differently to the last one. So I'm just going to clean off my Aqua pen a little bit. Just need a tissue or some paper of some sort just to squeeze that water out. And I'm going to go to my next colour. So I'll pop that one to one side because I might want to come back and add a bit more to that in a moment. And the other colour I used was the Cherry Cobbler. So again, doing the same thing, just squeeze it to add a bit more ink onto there. add a bit more water. Now this is a very strong colour, and a little bit of this will go a long way. So I'm adding a fair bit of water to this. And again, just blowing, making sure that my aqua painter is over the centre area there. Now, if you don't have enough, like mine's starting to dry out a little bit, my aqua painter, so I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of water down into that barrel, and as I'm squeezing it down, blowing at the same time, just blow that ink around a little bit more. And I really love this effect that's coming out. So because that's a strong colour, I think that's all of that colour I'm going to use. But I might just add a little bit more of the Dapper Denim, just to give a bit more colour. Now I do want to add a little bit more ink to this. I'll just move my hand out of the road, sorry. Squeeze out a little bit more. I did just clean off a little bit of that water out of the lid, just because it was just getting a little bit too liquid. I just do want a little bit more stronger colour. Whoa, that gave good strength of colour there. Maybe just a little bit more this way. Okay, I think that's enough of that. Now, the mint macaron is a very light colour, and so it probably would work a lot better if you did have your re-inkers with this colour. But again, I don't have the re-inkers. So I'm just going to add, again, a bit more water into this, but I don't want to add too much because I do want to keep a little bit of strength. But with this, I'm just using it more as a bit more of a highlight of the colour, and I'm not using it from the centre as much. And I'm actually bringing my straw a little bit closer to my aqua painted nib, because I just want spurts of that colour, and I just want it more into those white areas, not so much and maybe just a bit more down here. Okay, so let's just take that away and I'll turn that around. So you can see there now I've achieved a similar effect. Probably a little bit heavier than my original card, and eventually this dark spot there is going to get covered up a little bit by my die cuts. Okay, so just let that dry for a few minutes. If you want, you can get your heat gun on that and just give it a quick dry, but don't use it too long on there. Because we haven't actually saturated that area with water, it doesn't take too long for that to dry. So what I did next with this card, once I have done that, I'm just going to add a little bit of multi-purpose glue to the back of it. Now you can let this dry a little bit longer, but just for the sake of this video, I'm going to do this now. Just add a little bit of glue to that, and then with the cherry cobbler, I'm going to adhere that. And the multi-purpose glue, because I've only allowed a very fine border, just allow that to stick down. Now I probably should have let that dry just a little bit more, but I just wanted to keep this going fairly quickly for you. Okay, so the next thing on that is adding some dimensionals to the back. It's up to you how many you wish to add. Whoops, that should be enough. I'm just going to pop each one of those. If you push into the middle of each of your dimensionals, it does sort of help taking these backings off. Oops, so she says, and it's still not coming off. And then I've just got a black card base. Just opening from that direction, and I'm just going to hear that down just like that. Now unfortunately that is popping up a little bit there. That's because that is still a bit damp. Okay. Whoops, I have smudged that a little bit. I've got a bit of ink on my hands, I'm sorry. Okay then. Now what I do, I have got put onto this is some gold thread, and I've just wound some gold thread around my fingers and attached it to a glue dot, and I'm going to use my fine tip scissors just to take that glue dot off there, and I'm popping that in the middle, if it just wants to glue down for me, into that area there. As I said, it's a bit wet still, so, and I'm just going to move that around because I do want that gold thread to be on either side. I'm just going to close these inks so we don't have more ink in areas where I don't want them. Sorry. Okay, so I've already cut my die cut pieces out, and I'm using the die cuts from the Flourishing Thinlits. And I'm going to layer them on top of my gold thread. Oh, sorry, a few things are just falling down on me here. Let's pop those right out of the road. Okay. And the easiest way I have found to glue my flourishes down is with using a silicone mat. I've got a piece of foam here which I only use with my multi-purpose glue, and I keep it in a plastic bag so then your foam doesn't dry out completely. That is a little bit tacky. I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of glue onto my mat. Well, it is coming. There we go. And then with the back of my flourish, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. I don't necessarily want to go all over it with glue because I want to have a little bit of dimension to it. Just pop that to one side and bring the card back down. Just going to move that gold thread, and that flourish is going to sit, oops, it's getting a little bit caught and tangled, about there. Just position it in the position you want. And that will also help to hold down that gold thread that's underneath it. I'm just going to pick that up and actually... it always happens when you do a video, these things just don't want to go exactly where you want them. I want that glue dot to be underneath so we don't actually see it. So I'll just... that will just dry. Again, it's a little bit because my background is actually not quite dry. I'm going to do the same thing with my other, so with the leaf, just glue, put a bit of glue on that. So I'm just layering these on top of each other. And then finishing off with a little bit of the berries. Sorry, I hope my hands aren't getting too much in the road here. The berries. And then I've just made a little tag. And I've just used 2 stamps from the teeny tiny sentiments. And I've done one in the Dapper Denim and the other in the Cherry Cobbler. And I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue on there. I'm not using the dimensionals for this. I'm just putting a little bit of glue and just tucking that underneath just to sit on there. Okay, so that's that. And all I've done then is just stamped the flourish from the Flourishing Phrases stamp onto the edge there, and that matches up with the flourish that we've used on the front of our card. And that will just get adhered into the centre of the card there. Well, I hope you enjoyed that quick video on how I've done my background. It is a fun technique. I really enjoyed it, and all you really need is a straw and your Aqua pen and some good breath. Anyway, have a great day and enjoy yourselves. God bless. Bye.